Hi, so today I'm going to share some exercises that can help with low back pain. A lot of people have low back pain. Often there's not really an issue with your back, like you don't have a herniated disc or bulging disc or spinal stenosis. If you do have one of those things, then these may or may not help. You can try them. You'll know. But for the most part, people who have low back pain, sometimes it comes and goes. Sometimes there's a trigger like sitting for a long time or going to pick something up. You might strain something. But usually those triggers aren't really the thing that cause the issue with your low back. Often the reason you have a low back pain is because of something else, meaning either weak glutes, tight hamstrings, core maybe not as engaged or strong, tight psoas muscles. So there can be these contributing factors that are with you all the time, and then there's some trigger that sort of then prompts the low back to either spasm or get strained. So these exercises I'm going to share with you help to address those contributing factors. Another contributing factor for you yogis is an overstretched piriformis. And when we do Pigeon Pose, we love that stretch. That's the piriformis that you feel kind of right back here. We're going to look to strengthen that in a couple different ways. And so to start with, I'm going to actually start with bridge pose. But I want to first lie down on our backs and have you all feel when you just lie flat, notice that there's a little space right at your low back. You can probably slide your hand underneath it. That's your lumbar curve. And we want to keep that lumbar curve the way it is for a lot of the exercises. Sometimes we'll deliberately draw the low belly down and roll the lumbar curve down. But for a lot of times we want to just keep that lumbar curve. So when you feel that, you notice how there's that curve. When we sit back up again, I'm going to draw your attention to that as well, because that's often an area, another contributing factor is just poor posture, that we just forget that we are doing that. So let's start with our exercise with bridge. Now, if you'd like to increase intensity of this exercise, you can grab one of these bands and slide it over above both knees. You can slide it around and take it above both knees. If you don't have low back pain, feel free to do that. The exercise I'm going to show you, the variation of bridge, is that you can still do that, but you'll notice this will actually increase some intensity anyway. So normally we start bridge with our feet about hip distance apart. So go ahead and start with that. And then roll your shoulder blades underneath you. With bridge, we're going to always keep our gaze up at the ceiling. So if you want to watch me for this first one, you can just roll to your side. But you might not need to watch me. So for low back, so you are welcome to do bridge as you always do it, or with the band, with your feet hip distance apart. One variation that can help with low back pain is to draw your feet out a little bit. So I'm going to say let's toe heel our feet out, kind of one full cycle. So you're going to kind of go toe, heel, and then toes. So now my feet are about at the width of my mat. My toes are facing out a little bit. And from here, I'm going to go ahead and press into my heels, lift my spine and all the way through my low back off the floor. Notice now how you want to keep your neck. There's a little space between the floor and my neck right now. That's normal, right? That's like the normal way your head and neck are. And we're going to keep that. So even if I lift up, my chest might come to my chin, but I'm not going to drop my chin to my chest. So I'm going to keep my neck in neutral, basically. Now with my glutes engaged here, they're certainly working to keep my back off the floor. But notice how if you really squeeze your glutes, that might actually contribute to a little bit of low back pain. So I'm going to keep them engaged without crunching, without squeezing. And I'm going to think about more lengthening my tailbone towards my heels. Keep drawing the knees out, and this is where if you have the band, it'll really increase the intensity. But you don't have to use the band. The other good thing about the band is it actually builds these abductor muscles, which is another contributing factor, can be to low back pain. And then we'll lower back down. So actually we won't always hold it that long. Take a breath in and a breath out. So I'm going to just share these exercises. You're welcome to pause the video and do a lot of them. But I would say for the bridges, lifting and holding for a count of 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then lowering down and doing about 10 of those. Another really great bridge pose to do is drawing your feet back to hip distance. And again, only if you have no pain when you do this, pressing up into bridge, but lifting and extending one leg. And again, holding that for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then lowering back down, taking a breath in and a breath out. And then go ahead and do the second side, holding that leg. I like to extend it out long. Some people draw it up, which is fine. You can really do either one. I find it's a little harder, actually, I think, to have it out this way. So you decide. But you'll notice that, in my case, my left glute is super engaged, and I have no back pain when I do that. So those are a couple options on bridge. Another really great exercise is for our, like I was saying before, our abductors, the muscles, the outer hip muscles. So go ahead and come on up, or you can just roll to your side. And what we're going to do are clam shells. And again, having the band lifted up above your knees will increase this intensity, but you don't have to do that. So you're going to lie down on your side. You're going to draw your knees up a little bit. They're not all the way up at 90 degrees, kind of maybe 75. Keep your toes together, and you're just going to open one knee and lower it. Now you might say, well, this is really not very hard, or maybe it is hard. Again, this is where the band will really help. But another thing you can do, and this is really great to kind of teach your body how to engage, is really squeeze the glute. As you squeeze the glute and try to lift, you'll probably notice a little bit more intensity in this pose, in this exercise. So you can do like 10 or 15 on each side. Another option is to actually come up to your forearm and lift up into a variation of plank. So to do that, you're going to draw your knees more in line with your elbow. You're going to lift off the floor, and then you're going to lift open and close. So this is just a little more of a compound exercise. You're getting a little bit of the oblique work as well as this outer hip. One last thing, so again, you can do 10 or 15 of those. One last thing that's really great, and I'll do this on both sides with you guys, is a side plank that we'll hold for 30 seconds, lifting our leg for the last 15. Always just an option. So to get into side plank, I'm going to position my wrist underneath my shoulder. I'm going to lift up like I was in that clamshell plank, but instead I'm going to extend my legs all the way out to the side. So my shoulder and hips are in line here, and I'm lifted up. Now, we're going to stay here for 15 seconds. Stay super strong in your legs. You can lift your arm up if you'd like. You can keep lifting the hips. We've got 5 more seconds in this pose. You're going to stay in plank and either stay just like you are, or to add a little bit more, you're going to lift your top leg. So you really have to press away from the floor. You'll notice both outer hips are really working here, both sides, and it's really a super strengthening pose. And then you can come back down. And then we'll go to the other side. So again, you can do this for 30 seconds on each side. We'll come on up. We'll hold this for 15. So I'm nice and in line. Hopefully you can tell that. And another cue here is to really draw your shoulder blades together so that your shoulders aren't like sagging. You're kind of lifted up. And then let's go ahead and lift the top leg for 15 seconds. Keep pressing away from the floor. And just 5 more seconds here. 3, 2, 1, and come on back down. Great. So another really great strengthener for the core. And so that's a good core strengthener, side plank. And you can do that a couple times, 30 seconds on each side. Plank itself is a really great strengthener. So to come into plank, you can start on all fours, extend one leg back and then the other, and then again, really draw the shoulder blades together, and we'll stay here for a minute. So your gaze is kind of out to the top of your mat. Just notice if you don't want to crane your neck or tuck it, just kind of find that nice neutral position. Lift through your belly. So the other great thing about plank is it can help you find that core engagement where it's isometric. You're not doing a sit-up, but you can draw the belly strong here. Keep pressing your heels towards the back of your mat. Keep breathing here. Drawing the shoulder blades together. Pressing the heels back, lengthening the spine. And then come on down. So that's you can do that a couple times if you'd like. A couple more strength work and also stretch work. So as we start to move into the stretch phase, this is a little bit of a combo of stretch and strength. So we're going to start with a kneeling lunge. Now, a lot of times when we come into this kneeling lunge, we kind of just let everything collapse. So for this one, you're going to draw yourself at 90 and 90. So my knees are pretty much at 90 degrees. Maybe this front heel comes in a little bit. Then I'm going to really press into the top of the front foot and engage this back glute. So the glute of my back leg, really squeeze it. And just see how right there, I get a little stretch in my psoas, the front of this hip. You might say this is enough. If you'd like to go deeper, you can walk that foot out a little bit and start to open through the hip, but try to keep this glute engaged. Try to keep pressing into the top of that front foot, and just hold it for like 15 seconds. And you might say, well, this isn't doing anything to my back. What it's doing is it's stretching the psoas, which is can be a contributor to back pain, and at the same time we're keeping that glute engaged. And then come on back, and we'll just do the other side. So again, we'll start at 90 and 90, pressing into the top of that back foot. Squeeze the glute, and notice how right away you might start to feel a little stretch in the psoas. If you do, you just stop. You don't need to go further. If you want to go further, you can start to open through that front hip, but you'll notice you won't go probably as far as you sometimes go if you don't have this glute engaged. And we'll just stay here for a few more seconds. And you can do, 15 seconds on each side. You can do it twice. Keep drawing that glute in. Great. And then another one that we'll do is double pigeon. So if you want to take your shoes off, you can. We're going to be done with the strength work. And it might be a little easier to get into the position. In fact, you could take your shoes off for that kneeling lunge too, if you're not going to slip with your front knee. So for double pigeon, what we do is we stack our knees, knee over ankle, ankle over knee. Okay. Now, I forgot to show you guys the sitting up posture. So when we sit, just always really notice the tendency to kind of, even it's a minor little roll. Sometimes you're way back here. But anytime you could remind yourself posture-wise, tip the pelvis forward. Find that nice lumbar curve. It's kind of like you're sitting on your sit bones and you're sitting nice and tall. It's not over exaggerated, so my shoulders are still kind of over my waist, but I've got a little curve here, and then my shoulders and are over my hips, I should say. But I've got that little curve right here in the back. And anytime you bow forward, just notice that whether you're bending at your waist, you want to keep the waist kind of straight and bend at the hip. So it's a difference between waist, hip, okay? So for double pigeon, or anytime you're seated, we're gonna try to keep our mindfulness about this low back lumbar curve. So what I wanna show you though on double pigeon, actually I can do it this way, so you can see. stacking the ankle over the knee and then the knee over the ankle, and sometimes it just helps to kind of move the flesh away so you can find those sit bones and sit nice and tall. This is a really great time to check when you do this pose if there's a little bit of lumbar curve. Roll it forward. So what we're going to do here, actually I'm going to flip around. So I have my left ankle on top and this is my left knee. And double pigeon is great. If this feels good, you just stay here. One of the things we're going to do though is work to engage again more, kind of like we did in that kneeling lunge. So you're going to take your right hand and cup it underneath your left knee. And you're going to press your left knee into your right hand at the same time that you're trying to lift your right knee or left knee. So it's like I'm trying to pull my knee up and I'm pressing my hand into my knee. So it's an isometric press, working this outer hip. You will probably feel this. It kind of feels good, but you can tell it's a strengthener. So again, you hold it for maybe, this one for maybe 5 seconds, not super long. And just notice if you're getting any strain in your back, don't do this one. But it's a really nice option. And then you can always feel free to go deeper into double pigeon and get a little stretch in that piriformis. But just we want to always kind of find an opportunity to strengthen the piriformis, press into the knee, or into the hand. And if you do that lengthening or stretching of the piriformis, just notice where it's coming from. Is it coming from, again, are you rolled back and you probably won't feel much stretch? You can always keep your hands behind you to help kind of remind yourself that it's a hinge at your waist, because it's kind of hard to bend at your waist. Keep your hands back. And then we'll do the other side. So I'll flip around so you guys can see. So now the right knee is on top. I'm going to take my left hand. I'm going to cup it underneath my right knee. I'm going to press my right knee into my left hand and I'm going to try to pull my left knee up. And again, this is just going to create a little bit more strengthening here in this outer hip. And you know, if you're in a yoga class and we're doing double pigeon, you can always just kind of throw this in for a couple seconds and then release and then maybe go into the stretch. So you can kind of feel that muscle that you were just working can get a nice stretch. Great. And you can always stay longer in that stretch. Another one we'll do is reverse plank. So reverse plank is, again, a really great strengthener for the whole back body. So for reverse plank, we're going to slide our hands a little bit behind your hips. Your fingers are going to face forward. Now, if this is at all uncomfortable for your shoulders, you can always take your hands out. It's totally fine. Doesn't really matter. Point your toes really hard. And then as you press into your fingertips, you're going to lift your hips off the floor, but roll the shoulders back. So notice sometimes you let the shoulders roll forward. Want to roll them back, lift the hips. The gaze can be up to the ceiling. If it feels okay for your neck, you can let it go back, but you don't have to. And you'll notice right away, this is really working the whole back side. And we'll stay for about 3 more breaths. Keep lifting up. And then lower back down. Now, an alternative to reverse plank is to do reverse tabletop. And it's exactly the same thing. You just bend your knees and you lift. And so it's not as challenging, but you still get a little bit of strength work back there. Okay. So those are a couple sitting up. Now the other couple I want to do from a lying down position. One is called scorpion. So we do scorpion a lot in yoga with our down dog. This one is on the floor. And so for this one, you might want to turn and watch me if you haven't ever done this. But you're going to lift and extend your legs kind of one at a time and sort of draw your low belly up without tilting your tail down, without curving your spine. Remember that nice little lumbar curve, even though you don't have the floor to gauge. But notice, you can go ahead and just kind of play around and you'll see what I mean, what it means to tilt your tail. We're going to keep that lumbar curve. You're going to draw your gaze towards the right arm. Keep pressing into the right arm. Lift the right leg, and then you start bending the right knee and open it up. I'm keeping my right hand on the floor. It's a really nice stretch for the front. Again, that hip flexor, but also you'll feel hopefully something in your back. Just more of an opening, not really a stretch so much. And you can stay here for a couple breaths. And then you can release it on back down. And I'm just gonna do the other side to stay even, lifting the left leg. And release it on back down. You can always do more of those as much as you want. The other great strengthener is Locust Pose. With Salabhasana, kind of like Superman but without any arms. So what we're gonna do for Locust Pose, your forehead will come to the floor. Again, lift and extend one leg at a time. And what we're doing here is we're just kind of lengthening all the way through the back body. Now again, draw the low belly up without tilting the tail down. So keep the core engaged. We're gonna do this a couple different ways so that you can find a way that works without straining your back, but that these are such good back strengtheners. So the first one, we'll have our arms alongside our body, pressing into the tops of the feet. Notice how that lifts your knees off the floor. Draw the shoulder blades together. On an inhale, go ahead and start to lift your head and shoulders off the floor, but think less about how high you can lift and think more about drawing everything forward. Keep pressing into the tops of the feet. Keep lifting the low belly without tilting your tailbone. Taking another breath here, and then lowering down. So that, you could do that like 5 times, holding that up for about 5 breaths, or 10 times, however many times you want. Another option is to go a little bit deeper into the back bending. So as you inhale and lift, keep lifting the low belly. You can also lift your feet and even your arms. So you're getting, this is just increasing kind of the effort here. Again, if you can do this with no pain, great. Do the full locust. Exhale all the way back down. Another one to do now is Sphinx Pose, which is more of an ab stretch, as well as a little bit of a back opener, back lengthener, I should say. So for Sphinx Pose, you're going to draw your elbows underneath your shoulders. Again, now lift through the low belly without tilting the tail. Just lift the low belly, just engage. And then feel as if you're drawing your mat towards you, drawing the top of the mat towards you. Press the forearms into the floor, press the shoulders away. Breathe here. Now, if this is too strenuous on your back, you feel a pinch, you can always come back down by taking your elbows out to the side a little bit. You can even come all the way down and just rest your forehead on your stacked fists or wrists. Now, normally in yoga, we would now do Child's Pose, but actually Child's Pose might be not feel as good. If it does feel good, please feel free to press back into Child's Pose. But if that does not feel good, do not do it. All right. Once you're done with Child's Pose, two more. Okay, so a couple more stretches. Go ahead and grab, if you have a block, a yoga block, grab a yoga block. Or if you have a foam roller, that will also work. For this first one, we don't need either of those. Instead, we're going to use a strap for our hamstring stretch. If you don't have a strap, you don't have to use it. I'm going to use this little tube. So for the hamstring stretch, what we really want to pay attention to, again, is this lumbar curve. Now, when you're extended long, you'll feel your curve. When you start to draw your leg up, go ahead and do that and notice how your back starts to press into your hand. It'll do that naturally a little bit. But notice if you're really like as you draw your knee up, have you lost your full lumbar curve? Can you draw some of that lumbar curve back? So what does that look like? Here I've lost the lumbar curve, I'm just kind of sinking into the floor. Here I'm going to draw it back. Now you can still get a really nice hamstring stretch. I've got the band looped over the ball of my foot, and I'm pressing my heel up towards the ceiling, trying to really keep that lumbar curve. You can keep this opposite leg bent, or you can extend it all the way out. You're gonna really keep that lumbar curve. You can always check on it a little bit, but you'll notice it. You'll know when you're pressing down into the floor. So keep pressing through that extended leg. If you extended it, keep pressing through both heels. And we'll stay here for a few more seconds. Just getting a nice stretch. And remember, it's always best to have the knee straight in the hamstring stretch. If your knee is bent, go ahead and lower the leg a little bit and then extend it. So bring the leg to whatever angle you need to so that you can have a nice straight leg. And then go ahead and switch legs. Just slide the opposite foot into the, belt, tie, towel, whatever you got, shirt. And again, now let's find that lumbar curve. So you can either keep your knee bent, find the lumbar curve again, extend the leg, try to keep that lumbar curve even as you might deepen a little bit into the stretch. So the hamstring stretch I would hold for at least 15, maybe 20 seconds on each side, and do it a couple times. And I'll show you a standing one too. You probably know this one, but just in case, because you won't always maybe have the chance to do it lying down, like if you just got out of the car. And then another really great stretch for the psoas. And so I'll show you this both with the yoga block and the foam roller. It's really the same. You can keep the yoga block on its lowest level so it's nice and stable, and like you were going to do supported bridge. But instead what we're going to do is we're going to draw one knee in and then extend the opposite leg out. So I've got my lumbar curve is totally supported here, and I'm feeling a really nice stretch along the front of that thigh. Again, I would hold this for 15 seconds on each side. And then go ahead and switch sides. And I'll show you, if you don't have the block, but you have a foam roller, essentially you just put the foam roller like where I have the block. Exact same thing. And again, you could do that twice on each side. So, like I was saying, if you have the foam roller, it's really the exact same thing. You just slide the foam roller up where you would have had the block, and you can do the exact same thing, okay? So the last one I wanted to show you is just a standing hamstring stretch, because you might not always be able to go on the floor. And getting the hamstrings stretched, and I'll also show you a standing hip flexor stretch. So the hamstring stretch that we can do is you'll just extend one leg forward a little bit, sit your hips back. So this is another place to kind of practice that hip hinge instead of the waist bending. Hip hinge, kind of stick your butt out, draw the front toes up, and you'll get a really nice stretch here. It's like you maybe don't believe that you can get that much stretch with this little bit of movement. Now, if you have something like if you're outside and there's like a curb or something, you can always increase the stretch, elevate your heel a little bit. But it's totally whatever you'd like. Just most importantly, find that nice lumbar curve, draw the knees up, stick the tail out. For the hip flexor stretch, it's kind of like we did when we were kneeling, but instead of kneeling, if you don't want to kneel on the floor, like if you're somewhere where you don't want to kneel down, then you can just come to the lunge. So we're going to have our feet hip distance apart, like you're on railroad tracks. Step the back foot back. Go ahead and bend the back knee, kind of like you were kneeling on the floor. And again, engage that glute, and that might be enough. You might say, I feel it now. And you can stay right there. If you want to go deeper, you can always lift the opposite arm. You can even take a little side stretch. You'll feel that for sure. But you can also just stay right here. And then do the same thing on the other side. And you step back so you're on railroad tracks. Bend the back knee a little. Grab that glute and engage it. Notice the stretch. If it's deep enough, you just stay right there. Right, so hopefully that helps you. You know, you don't have to do all of those every day. You can just do a few at a time. Try to do the stretches, a couple of the stretches, a couple of the strengtheners, maybe every day. Hope that helps.